This is the Vivo X200 Ultra. It's possibly the best camera phone ever made, and you actually can't buy this anywhere outside of China. This is the Samsung S25 Ultra, and you can buy this pretty much everywhere. And this has been the default Ultra phone to buy for the past maybe 5 years or so. But today we want to know if there is a new champion in town and which Ultra phone you should buy. Let's break down specs quickly. Vivo, you get a 6.82-inch 120Hz AMOLED display, 4500 nits of peak brightness, Snapdragon 8 Elite, a huge triple camera array, 90 watts of wired charging, 40 watts of wireless charging, 6000 mAh battery. So at that peak. This, however, is the S25 Ultra, and its spec sheet is a Snapdragon 8 Elite as well, 2600 nits of peak brightness on a 6.9-inch display. You get 4 cameras on the rear, 5000 mAh battery, 45 watts of wired, and 15 watts of wireless charging. So on paper, they're not all that different beyond a few sets. However, today we're going to compare them in all the things that matter to tell you which one is best and why. The displays, 6.82-inch 4500 nits on the Vivo X200 Ultra, 2600 nits 6.9-inch on the S25 Edge. This is a quad curved flat display. However, ignore all those specs, because when it comes down to actually using the phones themselves, if you're watching back content, you'll notice a significant difference. The S25 Edge, because it's an anti-reflective display, actually punches out its colors and looks super vibrant. And when you're sitting down watching content, you're not getting any reflectors on the S25 Edge. As you can see on the Vivo, you get an equally punchy display, but you fortunately do suffer from some of those reflections. If you're using it on a daily, you're still getting an excellent experience, but it's the S25 Ultra which offers the better overall display experience, primarily because of that anti-reflective display. The designs. Now, this might be a slight hot take, but we actually prefer the design of the Vivo X200 Ultra right off the bat, primarily because, one, color. In this particular red colorway compared to this silver icy blue thingy-majiggy, whatever it's called, looks significantly nicer. It's far more standout. But it's not just that. This feels more daring, more risque compared to the subtle mass market appeal of the S25 Ultra. And I can understand why. But this design profile is slightly boring, and I don't really necessarily agree that everyone feels as though the boxier design is better suited to a large-scale smartphone than the curved design, but to each their own. Across the sides, there's not much difference. Build quality of the displays, etc. we've been through already, and generally the look, feel, and finish is not all that different, but it's the X200 Ultra's large camera design, the fact that they have some innovation in the fact they've got a camera control button, probably shouldn't say that, but camera button as a whole. And then, I don't know why, but I'm a bit of a fanboy for these very large lenses on the back. And the design profile is just a little bit more daring and risque, which I wish Samsung would do more of, which in fact they have done with the S25 Edge. But in this case, it would be the Vivo X200 Ultra that gets the win on the design front. Now the performance breakdown for both run Snapdragon 8 Elite. However, this is 8 Elite for Galaxy on the S25 Ultra. The differences aren't that big. However, the Vivo does run a lot hotter when you've used things like 3D Mark's benchmark for this using Wildlife Extreme, which is a 20 cycles of a benchmark test. This runs significantly hotter, but the S25 will use more battery. So to's and fro's. I did think this hit over 50 degrees actually on that test, which is pretty crazy. Then generally speaking, when it comes to things like battery consumption, usage and power, 6000 mAh, 90 watts wired, 40 watts wireless, 5000 mAh, 45 watts wired, 15 watts wireless, and this is silicon carbon, this is lithium ion. So innovations in technology, the Vivo outstrips both. However, when it comes to things like gaming, there is no difference at all. Both run extremely well. The Vivo, let's start off with that. You get really great frame rates, super fun to use and interact. Feels very comfortable in the hand to use because of that curved design that we mentioned earlier. And this is running max settings on graphics and FPS on the Vivo. And you get the customization option to boost FPS using the built-in game engine settings for any game on this particular phone. The S25, on the other hand, using the exact same settings, max on Call of Duty Mobile, runs extremely well. No issue at all with any lag or anything at all. However, customization is actually lives not within the game itself or a pull-out bar, but within a completely separate menu where you can then optimize the game in terms of FPS or graphics, etc. So some small performance things there. When it comes to OS performance, again, both run pretty much identically in terms of transitions, in terms of moving between apps, in terms of opening and closing apps, all of that, they run really, really well. But as a whole, the performance, I'm gonna say, slightly favors the Vivo X200 Ultra, primarily because of the charging speeds, the battery capacity, and the capability of that silicon carbon battery. Cameras, you're probably gonna gather which this is gonna go. So you get triple cameras, 50, 200, 50 on the rear, and then you get a 50, 200, 50, 10 on the S25 Ultra. We popped the specs breakdown on screen. They do offer very similar performance when it comes to the main lens. However, the oversaturation in the S25 Ultra, I feel, slightly takes away from what it possibly could achieve if you were to use this on the daily. When you compare both side by side, the S25 Ultra fails against the Vivo X200, primarily because it doesn't offer the same level of detail, real to life, and the quality and detail in that photo on the Vivo is significantly better. As you move up the zoom ranges, further and further afield, you can see why the Vivo X200 Ultra not only has that incredible triple camera system, but also benefits from custom chips within its sensors to allow it to process images better, which is freaking wild to say the least, and just shows you how seriously they are taking this phone. And you can tell up those zoom ranges, you see significant differences on the Vivo X200 Ultra versus the S25 Ultra. When you factor in night mode after that, then again, the Vivo does a much better job of giving you a better real-to-life photo that doesn't punch out colors and give an overly sharp or bright image when it doesn't exist. It does a lot to retain those darker areas and shadows versus the S25 Ultra, which, to be fair, night mode I think is not a good phone at all, to be fair. I think it's terrible. You can watch our review in the link in description on this and why we've come to that conclusion. But on cameras, it's the Vivo X200 Ultra that takes it. And then as a whole, when you're comparing both, which one who wins? It's obvious by watching this, it's the Vivo X200 Ultra. However, asterisk and star, you can't actually buy this anywhere beyond China unless you import it in from somewhere like AliExpress, which you've popped the link in description if you wanted to shop there and buy one. So by default, the Ultra phone that you should buy between the two should be the Vivo, but you can't. So by default, it has to be the S25 Ultra. This has always been the default Ultra phone to buy for the last 20, feels like a million years, but it's been about 5 years roughly since the inception of the S20 that the Ultra has been available. So this would probably be the best Ultra phone to buy. In our opinion though, we would daily this Vivo X200 Ultra if we could, but unfortunately we can't. But actually what I would say is if you were to buy an Ultra phone and you wanted to get the S25 Ultra, I probably wouldn't. I'd probably default to something like a OnePlus 13 or the Oppo Find X8 Pro, which is our daily. Love that phone, great camera systems. It's almost similar to the Vivo X200 Ultra in terms of its quality of video, photo, performance, etc. All of that runs really, really well on the Oppo Find X8 Pro and probably is the default buy. It's about £200 less than the S25 Ultra. So if you wanted a Vivo X200 Ultra slightly dialed down, but still really great, get an Oppo Find X8 Pro. But for this test and this test alone, it's the Vivo X200 Ultra that takes the overall win and is our favorite Ultra phone to buy. But let us know your thoughts on what you think is the better Ultra phone. Would it be the Vivo X200 Ultra? Would it be the S25 Ultra? Or is it a completely different Ultra phone that we haven't shown you here that you would buy? Let us know in the comment section. Till the next one, we out.